My guest today on the Neil Wilkins podcast is Tom Paladino, who is I think we can say distinguished scalar energy researcher hailing from Florida. And he has over many, many years delved into what is, for some people, I guess, quite a profound realm of energy healing. Now, I know Tom is very, very passionate about the work that he's doing and uncovering. And for some people, this is kind of quite familiar territory, although possibly not in the way that Tom is going to describe and demonstrate to us. You may well already be very familiar with terms like chi, mana, prana, life force energy, Reiki, etc., etc. A lot of these terms are now in the modern vocabulary. But Tom is coming at this from a slightly different angle. And this is a new branch of science, very, very well researched, and really a branch of physics that I think for some is becoming, really quite a profound life-changing experience. So we're going to learn a huge amount about this opportunity. And in many ways, Tom believes, as we're going to hear, that this potentially could be the future of healing. So I'm really fascinated to go deep into this, Tom. Welcome to the podcast.
And I thank you so much for the invitation. Thanks, Neil.
It's great. So where did this begin? I mean, this is a big, big story and a big, big build-up. So when did you kind of get into this area?
At a young age, I was reading about Nikola Tesla, the great scientist. And Tesla was working later in his life on scalar energy, what some people call zero-point energy. And I was fascinated with his work, because Tesla was moving from electricity to non-physical science, what some people call consciousness or zero-point energy. So it was Tesla that really inspired me. I followed his work, and now I have scalar energy instruments. I'm in my laboratory with these Tesla instruments behind me, and it's very real. I can attest to the fact that consciousness or zero-point energy is a reality. It's real.
As we're hopefully going to be seeing from you. And it is very interesting. I think a lot of people in this current world where it is, I'm sure you'll agree, really kind of chaotic. It's so noisy. We are bombarded with information that can really kind of offset ourselves. And I think, for me, and a lot of work and a lot of conversation I have with my wife, Sonia, is all around this whole kind of sense of balance and trying as hard as we may in everyday living to maintain a sense of balance in lots of ways. I'm guessing this is kind of one of the essences of this particular sort of form of, we're not really talking about healing at this point, are we? We're talking about kind of energy flow, because this is not kind of new stuff.
Yes.
It's been with us since the dawn of the cosmos, hasn't it? This is kind
Yes.
of tapping into something that has always been there to strike a balance.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Scalar energy, what is that? Tesla energy. It's the energy of the sun, the energy of the stars. It's the primal energy of the universe. And now we're finally realizing that this energy, this free energy from the sun and stars, can be tapped into. What I have behind me is a miniature star. Why is that important? We're moving away from fossil fuels. We're moving away from electricity. We're going into a new realm of energy generation in which in the future, it has such potential. The future is free energy. You tap into the stars. You don't need a power plant. The power plant of the future are the stars.
Yeah, it is. And I think for many, many people, thinking of this is kind of, whoa, this is kind of, game changing to say the very least, but in terms of kind of supporting humanity, you say at this kind of very, very, precious time, because, for lots of us, we're at this kind of almost this precipice of like, is this whole thing going to survive? Is the planet going to be here? Are we going to be here? And what you're describing here is something that really is there. It's kind of omnipresent, available to all. Why haven't we tapped into this earlier? Why is it just now that this is becoming a thing?
That's a big problem, and we have to overcome that. You're absolutely right, Neil. I'm going to demonstrate to the audience. I hold in my hand a light bulb. Okay? Obviously, it's not plugged into anything. Now, this free energy instrument can illuminate objects. There's so much energy coming off the instrument, it illuminates the light bulb. So that's an example of free energy. Obviously, I don't need a source of electricity. I don't need satellites. I simply can illuminate a light bulb with this instrument. Why aren't we using this? We should. Frankly, we should have listened to Nikola Tesla. Tesla discovered scalar energy, and he was able likewise to illuminate light bulbs, sometimes at a distance. So what's the point? Well, obviously, I don't need a coal plant to illuminate my light bulb. I don't need a windmill or nuclear reactor. I don't need gasoline or propane to illuminate a light bulb. I can influence a light bulb through a force field. Now, this is the future. And if I can do this locally, and I can, as I've demonstrated, and eventually either me or somebody else will be able to send this energy at a distance and illuminate a home. And once we can illuminate at a distance, that will solve the energy crisis. Then we're delivering energy at a distance without an infrastructure, without satellites, without towers, without substations. We're able to send energy anywhere in the world free on the dime, so to speak. So it's free energy with a free infrastructure. You can't beat that.
And therein lies possibly one of the problems. This is not a political podcast by any way, and any of my sort of regular followers and subscribers will know that. We try and keep this quite neutral, but maybe test and push some of the boundaries occasionally. But there's a fundamental challenge here, isn't there? That, and I'm sure Nikola Tesla found this, back in the day, is that how can you tax something that is so intangible, that is so free? Yes, there might be some infrastructure challenges to overcome in terms of the distance that you're talking about there. But how do you kind of make this something that, where everything else is taxable, fossil fuels and the current way that we set up our systems and our processes for communications, for power, for utilities, this feels like it's just a little bit too easy. And if you can do it and I can do it, you can't tax that. So how is this going to gain popularity?
Yeah, you're right. It has to gain popularity by a grassroots effort. To make this distinction, I work alone. I'm not attached to government or big business. As a grassroots effort, this has to gain a foothold with people. And you hit the nail on the head. There's no money in this. Let me just be quite blunt. If you have free energy, how can you make money with that? Well, maybe in instrumentation, maybe in the distribution, but let's face it, what's free, the sun and the stars are free. This will change industry, not only the energy sector, but all our social order, our economic order will change with free energy. Tesla knew that. I know that. We're not naive. Your audience is not naive. This is where we're going. This technology is moving forward. Someday we will have free energy. It's coming soon.
Do you feel this starts, when you talk there about grassroots, do you feel this is going to start from a consumer, or let's say a family who, sort of, listens to this, they kind of get it, what you're saying, and they think, actually, we could invest in whatever way that, form of investment's required, and we could do this ourselves? Or do you feel that this is going to come from, innovative startup businesses or established businesses who are just consuming beyond recognition, and they need to kind of find it almost like a new way of, cost reduction, because if it's free and they can tap into this, their kind of cost base is going to go down. And there's something very commercially attractive about that. Which one do you think is going to be driving it, or is it both?
I'd say both, or many more to be included. Why? Energy is fundamental. Light energy is fundamental. When you control light energy, you control society. What do I mean by that? Our energy grid dictates the way we live. Without energy, we can go back to living in a cave, so to speak. Now, energy is fundamental. There are so many applications of this energy. Once we delve into that, and once we understand that our hundreds of inventions or derivatives therefrom can be utilizing scalar energy, or free energy of the sun and the stars, so many industries will spring up. I mean, look at the computer industry. Yeah, a computer is hardware, but look at the software that developed from that. Look at the other industries that developed from computer technology. Well, scalar energy will follow that trajectory. The initial computer behind me will, if you will, morph into many industries, many applications therefrom. It's quite exciting. I will go on record by saying the scalar industry will supersede the computer industry someday.
That would be just a wonderful thing. I can hear my heart rather than my head talking here when I say, oh, Tom, I want that now, today, because it just feels right, doesn't it? It just feels like, okay, if you take everything out of the equation in terms of commerce, in terms of politics, in terms of religion, to just take everything out of the mix and just come back to the purest sense of who we are on this planet, heart-centered human beings who should be, being kind to each other. This feels that whole kind of free premise and I come back to the word healing again. It feels so healing, doesn't it? This is not my head talking. This is my heart talking.
Yeah.
It's the
Yes.
right answer, isn't it?
It is. It is. Thank you for saying that. Tesla began his career with AC electricity, which was not free. Later in his life, if you look at his tower in Long Island, New York, that tower had no electrical wires connecting it. That tower did not have a substation or a power station anywhere near it. And you have to look closely at his inventions, and you realize there were no moving parts. Okay? So it wasn't a motor. So where's the motor, Neil? It's the stars. So what's the point? Tesla was on the brink of giving the world free energy, in which we could have avoided a great deal of bloodshed, sweat, and tears had we have listened to him.
So when you describe healing, then, Tom, is it kind of healing at a personal level, or is this a societal healing? Because it feels that this is bigger than just, I want to feel some good well-being, so therefore I plug into your system or into your process and I kind of get it locally. This feels like this is kind of healing for humanity, to coin a bit of a cliche there. But is that kind of what you're saying?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. This instrument can easily work with 1 million, 2 million photographs a day of people. I've been working with animals around the world. I work with kangaroos in Australia. I work with infected trees in Hawaii. So by way of this instrument, I can send energy anywhere by way of a photograph of a person, animal, or a plant. And I'm having great success. So you're absolutely right. Not only for people, but for animals, for objects, plants, and on a grand scale. Without equivocation, this instrument can easily work with 2 million, 3 million photographs of people a day. That's where we're going. And society will benefit. Everybody will benefit. That's my point as a researcher. I'm a humanitarian. I want everybody to benefit.
Yeah, the deeper we go into this, the more interesting and more fascinating I actually find in this, because there's something really kind of sort of innate and raw sort of behind this, that I think, people listening to this would be thinking, okay, I don't know how this works. Kind of, there's a star thing going on. There's some kind of device. There's a kind of the photographs that you're talking about there. How much is this intention as well? A lot of people talk about, law of attraction and intention and manifestation of things by, thinking and feeling and having that kind of desire, and then things manifest for you. How much is that kind of wrapped up into this, or is it more scientific? Is it more, no, there's a logical process happening here?
They're both. It is a scientifically engineered instrument, but also the way people interact with this. Why? Our brain waves are scalar waves. Our emotions, our compassion, our mercy, our love are scalar waves. So the way we think and feel is the scalar dimension. And I can prove that. Why? Scalar energy transcends time and space. Well, thoughts and emotions, our cognitive thoughts, our heartfelt emotions transcend time and space. So what we're working now with is consciousness, as I mentioned previously. Our thoughts, our emotions are scalar waves.
So it's kind of, it's just mind-blowing when you stop and think about this. I was just sort of pausing there to just try and find the right words, because it is actually quite mind-blowing that this thing that you're talking about, this kind of energy source, which, for those of us who've done meditation or any kind of sort of work with, energy, will know, and you'll know if you're listening to this, you'll know that there can be some real profound physical benefits for kind of tapping into this, and they could be short-term, could be much longer term. But what we're actually talking about here is that this is pure holistic, isn't it? I mean, this kind of
Yes.
captures everything in its entirety. There's almost
Yes.
nothing that could escape from this.
Yes, because it's consciousness. And when we're working with pure energy, there's no chemicals involved. So it's intelligence. When I broadcast this energy, it's intelligence, it's information. Nothing can go wrong. There's no physical consequence. I don't work with physical reality. This is non-physical intelligence or consciousness. So this really takes us back to square one of the universe. This takes us back to the first cause, the primal cause.
Yeah, and kind of with that in mind, then it's obviously going to be something that people listening to this will be curious about. Again, as I say, some people might have done meditation or any kind of energy work. How do they kind of sort of begin to realize this then in their worlds? I'm talking about a person maybe personally to start with, and then we'll talk about professionally how this might come into play. But from a personal perspective, where would somebody begin if they're kind of feeling a little bit drawn to this and they think, oh, there's something in this that I need to investigate? Where would they kind of take those first steps?
And those first steps are the way you think and the way you feel. Without equivocation, the human mind fascinates me. How do we acquire a thought? What is creativity? Why is it that some people can compose a musical score? That's all the scalar information or a scalar wave. Why do some people have deep felt emotions? What is it? The love of a mother for a child. That's a scalar wave. My point is this: everybody is a scalar energy expert. Everybody has a mind, everybody has a heart. Scalar waves dictate our thinking, it dictates our emotions. When you're united with this energy, consciousness, I really feel that you're united with God. And in so doing, it's singularity. You can't make a mistake. There's only one option, which is the only option. It's the best option. It's the natural option. It's the perfect option. So we avoid the effect. This is very keen. We avoid the consequence. We just deal with the primal force. There's only one force, the life force energy. You can't go wrong.
So when, I guess you will have been at some point challenged with this. Is like, oh, it's not a real thing, or somebody's either a dissenter and they kind of say, no, there's no way this kind of works. I need to sort of see and be able to see and touch things to believe that they exist. Or somebody is a little bit of a skeptic. They say, well, yes, okay, but it's kind of pseudoscience. Really, is what you're saying here that they're tapping in, if they are able to kind of benefit from this, tapping into what you might call God, the universe, the grid, the matrix. There's obviously has lots of different definitions, doesn't it? Is what we're saying that this is irresistible, to use a word? It's almost you cannot resist it because it is so much bigger than you, but you can choose to kind of deny it, and you can choose to not recognize it, but you can't resist it. Am I going in the right direction here? Is
Yes.
this right?
Yeah. That's brilliant. That's very accurate. Yes. And why can't you resist it? It's the energy of the stars. There's billions upon trillions of galaxies, as we realize. How can you escape star energy? You can't. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. And let me demonstrate this for your audience. I'm going to show you how this energy passes through a wooden board. What's my point? This is a wooden board. I'll place it by the instrument. And in so doing, I'm going to show how a wooden board cannot stop star energy. This is a light bulb that I hold in my hand. As long as I place that light bulb close to the instrument, the wooden board does not stop it. It will illuminate. So what's the point? You can't stop this energy. It's everywhere. It's star energy. Without it, we would have chaos. This is the order out of chaos. You need light information to bring order out of chaos. What is my point? It is irresistible. No matter where you are in the universe, you're flooded with scalar energy, consciousness, intelligence. So, and those who acquire that and work hand in hand with it benefit. If you try and reject it, you cannot. It's impossible. But it's to your detriment because you won't take the advantage of the life force energy.
Yeah, the way that you talk about this is really interesting and kind of challenging, I guess, the way that I had been thinking about this concept or this reality, um, because a lot of the stuff that I've been familiar with, things like Reiki and quantum touch, both of which my wife practices, um, they're kind of almost intangible. You can feel the effect. I mean, it's an
Yes,
incredible effect. So I know works because numerous
right,
times I've felt the effect and the benefit. But what you're doing here is bringing a tangible element to it. In other words, physical products, physical items
yeah,
that you can actually see a physical change in. Is this something which is kind of introducing a little bit more obviously the science into it, because a lot of people challenge this stuff because they can't see the science. A lot of people can say, well, look, there's a lot of research done and there's this and there's that, but until you do a demonstration as you just did there, Tom, it's still quite intangible for lots of maybe less naturally intuitive people. If you're very intuitive, you kind of feel it and you know it, but if you're not, then there's no criticism and no judgment, but it is harder for you to conceptually understand it. Whereas a demonstration like that is physical objects, physical things that are being changed by this. Is this where you see the kind of the science going? Because it almost needs to go there for this to become more
right.
mainstream or more acceptable.
It does. That's a good point. Some people can heal by prayer or intention or by a favorable word or by healing hands. That's true. Well, what is that? What are healing hands? That's energy hands, scalar energy hands. This is a scalar energy instrument. So this is the bridge that will hopefully bring spirituality and science together. There is no distinction. It's just a different definition of truth, reality. Science is true. Spirituality is true. It's just a different interpretation of the truth. So that's one of my points. If this is non-physical, we cannot look at this in the physical sense and try and measure it. It's infinite energy. If it's non-physical, how can we see it? You can't. It's invisible. It's information. How I can't look at intelligence. This is consciousness. Has anybody ever measured consciousness? No. Has anybody ever seen consciousness? No. We've seen the effects of consciousness. And this might be the bridge, this might be the connection for those with a spiritual background as opposed to those with a scientific background. And that would be, I'd be keen on that. I would love to see that. Keep in mind, this is singularity. This will unite mankind. I keep saying singularity or coherence. What's my point? There cannot be any division with one. If this is the primal energy, the one energy of the universe, you can't fight it, and everybody should agree with it. So there is no division. This should unite mankind. There's no division.
There's a lot of work. There is a lot of science behind this. I know from a small amount of exposure and background that I've had sort of in this area. I mean, people like Greg Braden and the Heart Math Institute, for example, doing a lot of work on heart coherence and that effect of exactly what you're talking about here on heart resonance, and a lot of the research and the numbers behind that really take your breath away when you see it, because it starts to introduce this real impact. And once you see it, you can't not see it. It's once you've experienced it, you can't not remember that you've experienced it. How do you feel that this is going to sort of need to be brought into the public psyche? Because, obviously this is a very small podcast, which is a tiny little, grain of sand on a huge kind of beach full of, I don't know, beaches. It's a very small kind of little moment, and you're one individual, clearly, passionate about what you do and uncovering some amazing, opportunities here. How do we kind of broach this and make this more mainstream? I mean, I've been tussling with this for a long time. Any ideas?
Yeah. Neil, if I knew, I'd buy you dinner. If you could tell me, let me know. I'd buy you dinner. I don't know. Now, here's the drawback. Once again, I am one researcher. I don't have a team of researchers. I work with engineers and manufacturers, but I'm the main theorist, if you will. Now, I have to leverage my time and my opportunities. And thank you for this podcast. How do I get the message out there? Well, if any of you are in marketing, approach me. I don't know how to go about this besides just explaining this on a podcast. I could reach people around the world by way of a podcast, but that's a good point. That's the detriment. That's the bottleneck right now. How do I get the information out there?
Yeah, and it's interesting. I think we obviously talked a little bit there about the personal side. So, I mean, let's kind of shift into then the professional side. So, somebody in the audience here listening to this thinking, well, I am a marketer. I develop products, maybe services as well. This is really interesting stuff. I'd not really even thought about this being a possible thing, but I have seen or heard one or two things like this when I've been, looking on socials or, in the media. And now there's a guy here who is a researcher, clearly doing a lot of background kind of data collection and, working with, as you say, with manufacturers and exploring this stuff. Where would they start then in terms of their thinking? Because if they take this back into their organization and say, hey, scalar energy, scalar light, it's the future. And then they start to introduce this conversation, but it's a very, let's say, I'm being kind here, but very well-established and traditional organization. I'm being really kind there by saying that, but it's that kind of nature. That's the kind of style and culture. What would be good ways of sort of, do you think, introducing this in? Because they're going to need a bit of help, aren't they? I've tried this from a sustainability angle. I've tried this from a sort of personal development angle, and you can make little gains, but to break into a mainstream organization is hard. That's a hard
Yes, it is.
jump. What
Yes,
could they
it is.
do? What sort of suggestions might you have?
Well, you have to prove yourself. I'm all about proving myself performance. On the website, we have 4,000 testimonies that people speak of their quantum health. Now, I'm going to make this very clear, and I'm going to answer your question. When I work with people by way of their photograph. There's no in-person sessions. Your photograph has quantum energy. The instrument works through your force field on a photograph. Now, here is the before and after that I like. Before people come to me, they report to me that they'll have a viral infection, say Epstein-Barr or herpes. After they submit a photograph to me, without equivocation, without exception, people say that they no longer have a viral load for Epstein-Barr or herpes. Now, why do I mention that? Those two viruses are common. There's a global prevalence of both Epstein-Barr and herpes. And once you have those viruses, you have them for life. However, people who have sent me their photograph are now claiming that they no longer have a viral load for either Epstein-Barr or herpes. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, apparently, and some people think along these lines, that this energy can transmute a virus. Can I prove that? No, because I'm working in a different realm. I'm not working with the medical science or Western science. This is not Newtonian physics. But there's so many testimonies now on my website. We receive testimonies every week. People say that they no longer have a viral infection. And they follow that up with a PCR test. And the PCR test says, I no longer have herpes. I'm going to show the audience, for example. This is a PCR test for somebody who had herpes for years. After this individual submitted a photograph to us, there's no viral load for herpes, not detected. So what's the point? The testimonies are the story. The testimonies now are, if you will, the data that people are looking for. And that's how we have to move forward. If people see results, they're interested. And that's the key. The greater number of testimonies is the way we're going to move the needle. That's it.
And just through the power of a photograph. So am I right in thinking then that the analogy here, again for the skeptics and trying to get this over the line, is that if you're thinking, what, from a photograph, there's no way. Actually think about when you look at a photograph yourself of a loved one, you get a feeling of love. You get a feeling of, oh, there's the person I love. And, in parallel to that, if you look at a photograph of something that gives you a repulsive kind of action, so you're kind of driven away from it, this is what we're talking about here, isn't it? There is energy in the photograph that makes you respond. So are you tapping into that same again,
Yes.
it's the same field, isn't it? I think we're talking about the same
Yes.
thing yet again, aren't we?
Yes, we are. This photograph is my bilocated version. My heartbeat is on that photograph. My blood type is on that photograph. My genetic character, my genome, as far as information, is found on that photograph. My photograph is much more than a facial reproduction. It actually carries my energy code, my energy signature. So I don't have to work with people, I work with photographs, which is their bilocated version. A photograph allows you to bilocate to my laboratory. I don't work in the biological sense, I work with photographic force fields. That's the key to my work.
And that is something, everyone, I don't think you were expecting to hear today, that was possible. This is really, really good stuff. I'm loving this. So if you can be then healed as an individual, or you can find some kind of solace in, some challenge that you have through this, through the benefit of a photograph. I mean, this really then is, coming full circle to where we sort of said we were beginning, which is that this is the future of healing. It's,
Yeah.
this, in terms of you don't work with medical science, but it almost feels, well, you don't really have to, because you can make
Right.
a profound difference almost without those other kinds of interventions. And I'm assuming that there will be certain interventions like physical injury, for example. So you break a leg or something like that, that wouldn't necessarily be treatable by this, or are there things that might also then begin to help us with?
I think once we understand consciousness to the extent that we can manipulate and control it, we should be able to cure most diseases with consciousness, because it's an information system. Even a fracture, even some type of a break of your bone, we should be able to heal it through intelligence, through some type of signal. Keep in mind, we have a wonderful medical community. I do not in any way disparage anybody in the medical community. But energy is fundamental. People are not fundamental. And why do I have such high promise for this? Because I'm working with the fundament of the universe, the intelligence of the universe. This instrument does not make a mistake. There's no human reasoning. It's intelligence. So if this instrument can eradicate viruses and bacteria, there's no telling what it can do once we understand how to work with this instrument. It's going to change the world. Once we have a firm grasp as to the working principles, I'm still learning. It's still a new science to me. So to answer your question, I believe scalar energy, as the intelligence of the universe, should be able to correct any problem, period.
So from a business sense then, in terms of developing a new product that has a different form of being fueled, or power source, all the way through to, I'm guessing, those what might have been in the past antagonistic board meetings, or difficult conversations or difficult relationships within a particular team, working with a colleague who's really antagonistic and really unhelpful as a team player. If you had a photograph of that team or that relationship or those two individuals, I'm assuming then that this could actually help with that as well. And this is almost like it's untethered, isn't it, really, in terms of the benefits that this could bring?
Yes, even Tesla said we'll use scalar energy in the future to download information into our mind. So instead of reading, or instead of computing, or instead of in some way trying to cogitate deduction, forget that. A download in a flatus by way of light will give you infused knowledge. By the way, Tesla mentioned that throughout his life. He had flashes of light. He called them flashes of light. Well, what type of light do you think that was? It was scalar light, scalar energy. And those flashes of light allowed him to see an invention in his mind. This is one of the reasons why he was so prolific. He had flashes of light, infused wisdom, infused knowledge, that he did not have to go to the laboratory. God gave him this flash of light, this illumination, and that's how Tesla learned.
So, related to that, and I'm going to ask you a question in public that I've never asked anybody before, but I think you're the guy to answer this one, actually. is that over the last, I'd say probably 6 months, and I don't remember to do this every night before I sleep, but what I've done is I've been kind of playing with the idea of tapping into, well, we could call it the universe, the grid, whatever, tapping into this matrix with a small m. And the idea being that before I go to sleep, I have the intention that I'm tapping in, almost like you're plugging your smartphone into, to charge overnight, but that I'm actually tapping my consciousness in to a grid, a matrix, and actually allowing it to kind of almost sort of feed me with what I'm going to need for the next day. Now, for a lot of people, this might sound a little bit strange, but I've been kind of experimenting with this, and it just triggered your thought about this kind of this download of knowledge, of information, and what you need. I had been sort of thinking about playing with that and doing it. Now, my wife would, and probably other people who know me very well, would say, well, we haven't really noticed a difference, Neil. You're not remembering anything any better. You're not coming up with these profound new innovative ideas. So actually, we're not seeing it's working for you yet. But I'm still curious as to whether it might, and to whether one day I'm going to actually be sent through this process of, as I say, I don't remember to do it every night, but this process of, kind of tapping in, locking myself in, plugging myself in, to use a phrase that you've used, plugging myself into this kind of higher consciousness, this higher thing. What do you think of that as an idea? Am I doing the right thing? Is it a sensible move to experiment with?
Yes, and I encourage you. And yes, I encourage everybody. The mind is the interface to a consciousness, as well as the heart. And this is what you're able to do. Well, continue to do so and extrapolate upon that. This is, I think, really what God wants. This communion, this conversation, this communication. That really is the very quiddity of my work. To move beyond the physical world and into the non-physical, into intelligence, where it's so much easier. I mean, again, just as a paradigm, we have to drill for oil, okay? Or we have to erect wind towers or geothermal, okay? Well, isn't this much easier just to tap into the sun and the stars and then illuminate objects, or to send that energy without a grid system? It's all non-physical moving forward. We're getting away from the mousetrap of invention. That mechanistic lifestyle is going away. We're going into the information age.
And the real information age. I think, when you say that, I think a lot of people say, oh, yeah, that's great. Yeah, because it's AI and it's the metaverse and it's all these things. It's like, no, that's not actually what we're talking about here. Those things might have a part to play, but this feels, again, I'll use the word holistic. This feels much bigger, it's everything, isn't it? It's tapping into the everything, of which things like AI and metaverse are a small little grain of sand again, aren't they? Opportunities, but they're not really what we're talking about here.
AI, I'm no expert in AI, but nonetheless, it's still human ingenuity. It's still a computer that was designed by people, which is wonderful. This is designed by God. This energy is from God. It's mistake proof. That's why I like what I'm doing so much. I'm working with consciousness. It's without equivocation, perfect energy. There's no chemical residue. There's no carbon footprint. Use it appropriately. It will only help society. It's free. It's natural. It's clean. It's the game changer. This will change. It's a sea change for humanity.
So if then somebody is listening to this and they're thinking, okay, I need to get more information, I need to contact Tom, I need to just make a connection because I've got a professional and or a personal desire to find out more, investigate more, and or I've got a particular challenge that I want to bring to Tom's attention because I think Tom might be able to solve this or help me with it. What would you advise? Where should they go? Where can they connect with you?
On account of the fact that this is new and groundbreaking, these instruments are unique. I don't think anybody has these instruments on planet Earth. We offer 15 days of free sessions. Go to the website scalarlight.com, SCALAR, scalarlight.com. Anybody in the world is entitled to 15 days of free sessions Very simply, you're going to send us a photograph. Any photograph will do. It doesn't have to be current. We'll work with you for 15 days. We'll balance your chakras. We'll transmute, we'll eradicate microbes, viruses, bacteria, etc. And we also have a nutrient program. So for 15 days, we work with you with these instruments. Quantum health, it's not physical health. All of it is by way of your photographic force field. After 15 days, then you decide if you feel better. Most people do. You'll see. But try it. You have to dip your toe in the pool before you jump in. Try it. Try the 15-day session.
Yeah, and people, yes, I am going to be doing this. I'm going to be logging in this evening, and I'm going to be trying this, because if, like me, you're finding this really fascinating, you have to take action. This is the point with these things. You can listen to this and you can think, yeah, that's really interesting. Right, now back to my busy day, or, oh yes, back to tending to my illness, or yeah, back to solving that big challenge that I've got. Potentially, this is the future. Tom sort of started this by the premise of, light healing is the future, scalar light is the future. So go test Tom out. If you're curious and intrigued about what you've heard, and I want to go deeper into this, I want to find out more. And hopefully then when I do tap into the grid tonight, when I'm fast asleep, the grid will know I'm coming, because there'll be some kind of forewarning. It's too big, it won't even notice I'm there, but that doesn't matter. That's not the point. So yeah, give this one a go. Scalarlight.com. I will put all the details of the link and everything, and just a little reminder of the 15 days of free sessions for everyone, wherever you are. So this is not restricted just to you listening or watching this. Friends, family, colleagues, if you know somebody who might be curious, might want to tap into this, send them to scalarlight.com, and we'll go there and enjoy the journey with Tom. Tom, this has been really, really interesting to see the physical side of something I've kind of been playing with and exploring on a kind of a virtual innate sense for quite some time. Is really, really beneficial to see that light bulb. It's more than a light bulb moment. It really is. This is something really quite special. So thank you very much for sharing all of this with us today.
I enjoyed myself. Thank you so much, man.